Wow, good for you, sir. But now you're going to the actual head of, how do I say this? Politically correct that you take the blood out. Or you don't.
Please join him, okay? Please order. Okay, roll call is, looks like everyone is present. I want to go off the agenda right away and welcome Donna, our newest member to the board. Okay, could I get an approval of the agenda and the minutes?
I so move as stated.
Okay, and Joanne second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, they are approved. Public comments, there is no one from the public, so, okay, approval of contracts.
Yep, there's 3 on the agenda. Rachel Dorner, we would like to contract with her for birth to 3 speech therapy. Plausibility is a CLTS children's waiver service offered actually right at the Luxembourg Casco Primary School. It assists youth with positive social engagement. And then the Penny for Your Thoughts is a counseling service for CCS consumers.
Is there anybody present for any of the contracts? Then could I get a motion to approve the contracts?
Make a motion to approve.
Okay, Julie made a motion, is there a second? Okay, Mary Ann, second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm going to abstain because that is my daughter out there. So
Okay,
for the record, put that shall abstain.
okay, any abstaining or in there any no's? Okay, then that motion passes, okay, then we are on to the human service in service.
Yes, so today we have Sue Norton, behavioral health manager, and then Stephanie Oswald, who works in our comprehensive community services program. Later in my director's report, we're going to be talking about our efforts to kind of curb some of the concerns with case manager capacity in some areas of the agency. So through this process, our management team reviewed where there was maybe some room for growth or to increase some of the case manager capacity. And the 2 main areas that were identified were CSE and CCS. So Sue and Stephanie are going to talk a little bit about each of those programs and what we're hoping to do in the coming months.
So I'm going to, because we do have a new member, I'm going to give an overview of both of the programs because as you're aware, we have a lot of SPEED programs and it can all be confusing.
And Stephanie, I missed your title, what was?
I'm Sue Norton, I'm the behavioral health manager. This is Stephanie Oswald. She works in our comprehensive community services program. So first of all, our community support program is a community-based program that services adults who experience chronic and persistent mental health issues. It's a program that's designed to be capable of providing services that can be tailored to meet individual needs at whatever ranging level of intensity or need that they have in order for them to be able to remain living in their homes within the community and to be able to meet the level of need that might even be at the level of if someone might need to be in a psychiatric hospital. This program can be either voluntary or it can be court ordered. For the record, in the last 20 years, Kewaunee County has only had 1 person that has ever been court ordered for this program. That will become a factor later on, possibly when talking about this. The ultimate goal is to help people be as independent as possible with managing their mental health and to remain living in their community. It's a Medicaid funded program. And I'll get more into the financial piece a little bit later. Then we have the Comprehensive Community Services Program, which is, we call it the CCS program, which Stephanie works in. That too is also a community-based program that works with children, youth, and adults, and it serves individuals who experience mental health and or substance use disorders. And it's a program that's designed to help individuals who have a need that is greater than what can be met just during traditional outpatient service. So some people might just have a need that they might need to go to counseling once a week, once every couple of weeks, might see the doctor for some medication. This is for people who need a little bit more than that, but it's all done within the community. So that the program too is designed to meet the intensity at which people's needs are met. And the ultimate goal is to keep people living in the community, to be able to manage their mental health and keep people out of the hospital. Lots of similarities between the program. The CSP program is probably one of the older programs that have been around. I know statutorily, the rule for the program is one of the older rules in the state. The state has made an attempt to combine the two programs. They were unsuccessful at their attempts. There's kind of a couple of schools of thought. You have the diehard people who've been around for 100 years working in CSP. They'll live and die CSP, that's how it has to be done. Then you have the younger crew who are a little bit more perhaps open and flexible in their thinking, are familiar with CCS and the possibilities and the flexibility of the program that are that you can look at it in a different light and see it that really there's a lot of similarities within the program. The program with CCS is a voluntary program, so it can't be court ordered. However, we have had individuals who can be on a mental health commitment order through our crisis order. And typically those orders will say that they're to comply with the recommendations of the department. Never had in my career here have had a problem if the department says, we recommend that you be on this program, that people have a problem with being on the program. It's just an additional way to provide them support. So it's kind of a backdoor way of saying, this would be a nice way for us to meet your needs. It's not court ordered. You have a court order. We're just recommending that you get this treatment. This program, the CCS program, is 100% funded through Medicaid. So you have to be on Medicaid to have both of the programs. As my role as the behavioral health manager within both of these programs, I'm the administrator of both of the programs. What that means is my responsibility to the programs is I have to make sure that staff and as providers, we're adhering to all the state statutes, all the administrative rules, that we're billing appropriately, that we're not doing anything fraudulent. So making sure that we're following the rules to all the programs. And there's lots of rules. There's always lots of rules, particularly when there's funding attached. But I also provide all the clinical oversight. So for the CSP program, I'm the clinical coordinator. So I meet with the staff every week. We go over all the cases. I provide the clinical direction. CSP, CCS, I do the same. I provide the clinical guidance to ensure that the client's needs are being met, their mental health and their substance use needs are met. And as a manager, I also have financial responsibilities to ensure that our billable time, our hours are being met, that I'm monitoring those things, that we're following our budget. I help in the budgetary process. So just the typical managerial duties within that. So if I look at CSP and larger communities, we have in Kewaunee County, we have a whopping 10 people on the program. It's a very small program. Years ago, it was a bit more robust. Since I came on board, I had the philosophy of, I had the luxury of knowing the other program a bit, but the program was the CCS program was a little bit more and starting to, the upswing of it became 100% funded. So I had the philosophy of, if I can get them on the CCS program, I'm going to kind of go that route first, and we'll give it a whirl. So we haven't grown the program a lot. So it's kind of maintained status quo of the number of individuals on the program. So we've maintained a very small number of people, but we only have one full-time staff person on the CSP program, and that had been Laura Borkovitz, who has since transitioned or is in the process of transitioning over to a new role in the Children's Long-Term Support Waiver Program. So ideally, in a CSP program, if we think about clinically where they're at, they're severely, chronically, and persistently mentally ill. Logically, in my mind, as a clinician, they're some of the higher need people. So that would tell me I need to provide them with more mental health treatment and support in order to keep them in the community. And that's what many counties do, but they have the luxury of having more staff to be able to do that. There's something called ACT teams, Assertive Community Treatment Team, which requires minimally 3 full-time staff, typically full-time psychiatrists, nurse, case managers, there's therapists, AOD. We don't have that, but we also don't have the number of consumers needed to need that many staff. So that logically isn't a route we could even take or even want to take because we don't have the number of consumers to do that. So in essence, just thinking about that, the proposed change that we're looking to make, when we think about caseloads, is proposing, since Laura is transitioning to the CLTS program, that we're proposing that we're going to transition the 10 CSP clients to the CCS program. And my logic and reasoning are twofold, or maybe threefold. So first of all, change is difficult for people, and when you experience mental health issues, that can even be more anxiety provoking. So first and foremost, the opportunity or the timing of things. So I look at, they're already changing case managers. And for some, they've worked with Laura for 15, 20 years, which is a challenge in and of itself. So they're going to have to change workers, regardless, whether they stay in CSP or not. So my thought process is, okay, this is an opportunity. If we're going to change workers, we might change programs. So that's one part. Clinically, I think, okay, if I have the opportunity to provide them with more mental health treatment and support, why not? I have a program that is the CCS program. I have a robust number of providers that can provide them with all kinds of services and supports, where I have a program that I have one person that can only do a limited amount with 10 people. Logically, in my mind, that makes sense. I have high needs people, I'm going to provide them with the most amount of treatment and support that I can get them. So CSP is programmatically limited in our county because I have a party of one to be able to provide services, where I have a robust contracted population of providers that I can pull from to be able to provide them with the level of need and the frequency and the intensity of services and support they actually need to provide them with in order to meet their needs and keep them in the community. So to me, I think clinically it's a wise move because I can give them what they're actually needing versus just give them the bare bones minimum just to maintain them. Financially speaking, they're both Medicaid funded programs. I have CSP, which is a 60-40 split. And what that means is we get, the federal government will give us 60% of the Medicaid funded dollars, which for a bachelor level case manager, which Laura was, that equates to $24 an hour. CCS, on the other hand, is a 100% funded program through Medicaid, which for that same bachelor level case manager, we get reimbursed $87 an hour. I'm not a mathematician, but I know $87 is far more than $24 an hour. And I also know that the services and supports that they weren't getting before, they now can get, and those are also covered at 100%. So in combination of the additional mental health treatment at the frequency at which they need, that's 100% covered, to me, this is easy justification. So one might ask yourself, well, why didn't you do this before, Sue? I don't take, I thought about it, and this has been in my mind for a while. However, these are people's lives and I take that extremely seriously. When I came into this role, I didn't know the programs and I needed to become the expert on the programs to know what I'm doing first. I take this serious. I was new to CSP. new to the job, and we're still learning about CCF. And so for me, it was about get your facts straight, learn the programs, do what you need to do first. So back in 2018, a situation arose where we needed to, and I won't go into the details of it because it's not necessary. We needed to make a shift, and Stephanie used to work in CSP as well. We needed to make a case management shift. So at that time, I made the decision we're gonna shift case managers, but we're also gonna shift programs. And so we decided to, for lack of a better word, pilot to see how this would work. So we were shifting case managers, which was a change because the person had the other case manager for a while, which was nerve-wracking for the person, but we're also going to shift the program now, which is nerve-wracking for the person, and we're going to see how it works. You know, because I'm not going to shift 10 people and not have a clue what we're doing, and we're still learning, and we want to make sure, but I always knew we could fall back on the other if needed. So I bring Stephanie here today because she's going to talk about what that was like and how that has worked thus far. So we're back in 2018. By then I had a little bit more sense about me. You know, I knew both of the programs. Would I have considered myself an expert at that time? Getting there, close. You know, I'm confident in my clinical skills, but learning all the rules, regulations, and what goes into all of this stuff, what I can do, what I can't do. There's a lot of rules and regulations for this stuff. Getting there. But first and foremost, I think about clients. I had no clue about all the money stuff at that time. That comes later on. I've gotten my sense about me since then, but that comes later on. So Stephanie is going to talk to you a little bit about that piece and how it's been.
Hi, everyone. So over the years, I've been able to provide, I've had the opportunity to provide CSP and CCS case management. I recently, over the last couple of years, have transitioned out of CSP. And in my opinion, I think CCS has been able to provide a significantly more mental health treatment to our consumers. And I think that's just, again, what Sue said, is just a smaller, CSP is a smaller program. There's constraints to it. We didn't have the staff to provide that support to those CSP consumers. CCS is a very fluid program. We can increase and decrease services as needed when consumers are doing well and when they're not doing well. And sometimes that fluctuates over the years. So as Sue said, in 2018, we transitioned one of our CSP consumers to CCS. And previous to CCS, they had been on CSP from 1995 to 2018. And when we took into consideration the transition from CSP to CCS, we knew that there was going to be a high level of anxiety for this consumer. We knew that it was going to be very difficult just due to the longevity this person was on CSP, the fact that this person had been with that same case manager for years, and there would be quite a large increase in mental health treatments. So we spent a lot of time kind of easing this person into that change. And then over time, they became more willing and kind of bought into the philosophy of CCS. So as a result of changing to CCS, this consumer, we've experienced way less hospitalizations. Prior to CCS, they had been probably on average going inpatient to a psychiatric hospital about 2 to 3 times per year, if not more. Since being on CCS, they have not been hospitalized since April of 2019. So this person has experienced a lot more stability in their mental health. Since being on CCS, this person has started receiving 2 days per week of therapy services, as well as 12 hours per week of wellness management services, in addition to case management per week. So probably about 16 hours per week on average of mental health treatment, which was significantly different than in CSP.
So in CSP, prior to that, they likely would have gotten some weekly case management.
Yep.
So significant difference in the amount of support that you would get. Now, mind you, dollars and cents, if you want to think dollars and cents, 100% funded at 12 hours a week of treatments, 40% funded at $24 an hour of the weekly case management. But in my mind, person is living out of the hospital, successful in the community. That's success.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's, we've seen, through doing all of the mental health treatment, this person has developed a significant skill base to be able to manage their mental health symptoms, whereas before, this person would struggle and then they'd end up back in the psychiatric hospital, whereas now they're maintaining that and doing that within their home. With supports, they've also developed more skills, and relationship building skills specifically. And they've been able to build more of their natural supports, which historically has been a correlation to less hospitalizations. So CCS has been able to meet this consumer's level of need, and has in turn provided significantly more stability in their mental health, so that they can stay out of the hospital.
We're no longer paying for representative payee services. They're not
Oh,
able to
yeah.
manage their own finances
Yeah.
successfully for an extended period of time.
Yes, and doing it quite well.
So that's it in a nutshell. Open it up for, we want to open it up for discussion or questions on this?
Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
still have a question.
Yeah.
It sounds like, yes, that's a great move to go from CSP to CCS. My question for you is, one day when you retired and moved on to better things, is that program still there for the next director or manager that might come in and want to access it? Or because we're not going to be using it anymore, is it going to disappear?
The CSP program.
Yes.
So I'm in the process of trying to work with the state. I haven't been successful at getting my answers back. My hope was to leave the certification open and to see how it would go. I'm told that there's a possibility if no one's in it, it might just close. It can be opened back up at any time. It's just, you have to jump through the hoops to get it back open. The hoops might include the benefit of the hoops now versus if you've never had it before is all the policies and procedures are written, all those things are done. You know, the hoops wouldn't be as great as if you've never had them before.
Thanks.
I have basically the same question, but I'm wondering how many people then now are in CCS? And then also in kind of over a year, how many new people come in the program? I understand that a lot of people can be in it for life, but.
So we currently have, when I did at the end of December, my enrollment reporting, I believe we had 41 people on the program as of December 31st on the program. Now, of these 10 individuals that we would take on, 7 do not have Medicaid. Or 3, I'm sorry, 3, 7 have Medicaid. So we would take 7 of the 10 onto CCS. So that would take us up to 48 individuals. 3 of them would go to Jody Vandervest to do just targeted case management with them, where she would speak with them. Kind of what we were doing now, we were calling it CSP, but it was not a non-billable service we were providing to them.
And then the 3 remaining consumers are aging, so it seemed appropriate in our decision-making process to have Jody in adult protection provide the services to them and provide guidance on connecting with some of the programs available to elders in the community.
So how does one get on your program? Are they recommended by a physician or do
They can be recommended by anyone. They can call me.
oh,
Yeah. So some of the requirements would be, they have to have a mental health and or a substance use diagnosis. If they don't have that, I can refer them to someone to get that. So that they have to then be functionally eligible. You have to be on Medicaid, you know. You have to be functionally eligible. So there's a statewide functional screen that's completed, and staff would do that with them. And then they have to be clinically eligible, meaning that we have to do an assessment with them, and then they have to have an identified mental health or substance use need. But that's all part of the process that we work through with everyone.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you both. for coming.
Yeah, I'm not good at math, but I do know that 8 and 7 is more than 24.
Moving on to Brian.
Brian is 84 greater, 87 greater than 24. In most universe. Okay, I just wanted confirmation that,
Because she's up, right, count it up.
Okay. Going over the report for the month of December. We're still ramping up the month, but this is where we are so far. We're pretty close on live report. Still more financial stuff coming in, but so some of these will be the last time you see the reports for December. For billing for December, we have billed out 200,000 so far. Year to date, 2,966,000. We're still doing some cleanup on billing, so hopefully by year end, we'll, or when we're all done, we're somewhere around 3 million. I'm hoping for that. So far, we are looking at last year, we are 0.98% greater than last year in what we have billed out. So that part is good. Moving on to the state aid report. Cars are HSF programs. We have billed out 1.7 million and we've taken in 1,020,000. And through the month of November, we're at 72% of receipts. And we're still processing all our state claims for year end. We'll be doing that through the end of March. So we really won't have final numbers till into April, early May as to where we're going to come in. Looking at Spark, we have billed up 1.4 million and taken in 716 through December. That puts us around the 50% range, a little bit lower than we expected, but we also have the Toledo expenses sitting in there, which we're not budgeted for, or you pushed us over the thresholds for claiming. So that's all county costs that we've taken in. So that's why the percentage there has dropped. Normally it runs around 6. Income maintenance, 294,000 we billed out. Payments we've gotten in 205 in November, and that puts us at about 77.6%. Again, we'll be running finals on those. And for a look at WAR, we're starting to catch up on that. We'll have our whole 9,900 hopefully by the sometime early March. We did get a September payment in last week, and we do get we might get an extra bonus like we have for the past 10 years, but it's not a given coming in sometime after that. Looking at the contract status report, the year-end column consists of the December payments or expenses paid in January. So this is pretty much where we're going to end up for our payments for the month or for the year. And everything has been covered, and we don't have anything on the red at the end indicating that we do addendums, so we should be pretty good there. Moving on to the payments of the month, we paid out 222,000 in January. Again, most of these were December costs. Included in this, as we need to note, Toledo for the institutional costs of lacrosse, 42,000. Family services was 11,000 for an institutional fee. That was that we have a person in, and we had a double payment for Innovative for 2 months payment down here. So it included the November cost, which were 18,500 on top of the December. So if you back off the extraordinary payments, that brings us down to about 154, what we spent, which is more at our normal monthly level, so. We've kind of done good. Looking at and then there's some credit cards for managers for the month included with the packet. And now getting into the financials, that is for December. Again, this is not final. We still have month end or year end adjustments coming in. And this is estimate expenses and revenues that still are to come and haven't been booked yet, but pretty sure we'll be getting them in those levels. Looking at the admin expenses or revenues were 145%. That includes winter, which we do not budget. Again, the winter payment for this year was 477,000. 475, and the expenditures have come in at 91.8, so we're below budget there, and that should stick. Looking at economic support, expenses were at 90% of budget, and revenues were a little lower yet at 84. We have a few other things trickling in. We did get a payment last week for enhanced funding of 12,000, which is not included in here. So that will bring that up a little bit when they do final numbers. Rolling into the children and family services program, again, with Cholita cost in there, our expenditures have gone up to 121% of where we are, where we budget. That was again 318,000, I believe, that we paid for Cholita, and for the year. And we are looking at revenues coming in at 127%. Again, that does include unbudgeted funds received for subsidized guardianship and CSFF above and beyond what we had put in the budget. So that helps there. Going into behavioral health, if you go down to the bottom portion of it, they actually look like they're going to come in right on budget. Expenses at 100.5% and revenues at 101.6. So this does include Winnebago institutional costs. Not bad. That's what you know. Pretty good, something like that. Looking at the Winnebago cost included in here, they're 198,000 net through December. We just got a report back that we'll be getting reimbursement that will be put into 22 for another 45,000. So that will help our revenue to make those numbers even better. And going into the community and family section, we are coming in at revenues at 115,000 or 115%, and revenues at 117 again. This will be mainly driven by CLTS. More people in the program, more expensive, but then the revenue also follows suit. Going down to the bottom line for where we estimate to be coming in, I'm looking at with revenues coming in at 116% above budget and expenses at 107. That works out to be 394 positive balance. It will probably go above 400 when all said and done. And that's kind of where we look high up for the year. Brian, the 400 with or without the winter payment? That is with. That's it.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions for Brian?
Brian, how much are you planning on keeping in the fund at the end of the year that it doesn't go back into the general fund?
Everything. That's my plan.
Everything?
Absolutely, yeah. It's considered
if I may, is no different than land and water or highway. Any excess goes into the human services fund.
But we're going to be possibly sitting at.
Will be over $1 million in the fund. Yeah, right now we're at 650 or something like that.
Any other questions, Brian? Okay, thank you, Brian. Now, on to Melissa.
Yes. So I wanted to just expand a little bit on the staffing updates. So Rhonda Rummel has retired. You mentioned that in the past. So she retired at the end of January. Interviews were held and the position was offered to Stephanie Sikorsky. She is accepted and will start with the agency on the 27th of February. We mentioned that Laura Borkovich posted into the open CLTS position that was left vacant when Zach Weary transitioned into the child protection position. Again, this is all just trickling down from my jump into the director position. So all of the open vacancies as a result of that shift. So Laura Borkovich posted into the children's waiver position, moving from the CSP program that we were talking about earlier. 7 of the 10 consumers that she serves will potentially then move into CCS. And then those 3 remaining would be served by her adult protection coordinator, Jody Vanderbest. The agency needs assessment was completed by the management staff to really see where we have the greatest need for case management services. So we have seen over time that the children's waiver program continues to exceed the numbers that we had at our base. So this is rooted in the state's decision to eliminate the wait list in children's waiver. The state has put more funding in place to support the children's waiver program because it has been decided, and I fully support, that children with special needs should not be sitting on a wait list. Serving them earlier and not having them hold for services is going to save the county money in the long run by putting them in a position to be productive in the community. So through that agency needs assessment, we are hoping to have the open position left vacant by Laura's transition. That case management position provides services in CLTS rather than in that CSP program. Are there questions on that?
Sounds good.
Last month, we began discussions about filling the position left vacant as a result of Maureen O'Shea's retirement. We received approval by this committee, but we wanted to further discuss the position as well. So Maureen's time was spent as a full-time therapist with the agency. Moving forward, we have identified that it would be better suited to utilize that position in crisis coordination, crisis coverage, and CCS facilitation. Again, this is linked to serving more consumers in CLTS and CCS. If there was a need for increased therapy, we do have the opportunity to use community therapists to contract with them. Currently, we have some therapists internally, and then we also utilize therapists in the community as well. Does that make sense? So we don't feel that there will be that therapy need as much as we have the need in CCS. Tim, you look like
No,
you're
I'm
trying
just-
to process that.
I'm keep going. I'll ask my question after.
So what we are looking to do is just have further discussion with the committee as we request for the executive committee to approve filling the vacant position that was left as a result of Maureen's retirement. Are there questions on that?
Talked about crisis. Now refresh us again. We sort of subbed out some of our crisis stuff in between. Now, how's that all going to fall into place with this?
Yeah, so the crisis coverage is contracted with Family Services for after hours. And then Family Services is also taking the initial crisis calls, and anything that can be handled over the phone is handled by Family Services. And then if we need to mobile out, then our agency is taking the lead with that.
So the crisis coordinator part, that what she's talking about is combining that with the CCS. So what took place was, over a year ago, that was part of one of the therapist's 50% positions, was to do crisis coordinator and therapy. What that did was it interfered with his ability to do the therapy piece, because it was a lot of, working with the court system and this and that. So when Jeff Woznicki was our director, he opted to give me that 50% position on top of my position back in January of 21. And so then that allowed for the therapist then to just do full-time therapy to help with our wait list. So that's freed up his time, however, gave me another 50% position. So then, so the hope would be that this position could take those duties away from me. And then Maureen also would have been part of just the rotation for if we had to mobile out. So this person would be part of that as well.
What this really does, and this is always the difficult part with human services, is there's this ebb and flow depending. Currently with CLTS, you're starting to see more there. Because we have therapists in-house as well as we're contracting for part-time therapists as well, the need for a clinical therapist is less. And so what this does is this provides, at least I believe in my conversations with the managers, is that this provides the department maximum flexibility in being able to provide services to the clients. And so whether that means an increase from a crisis standpoint, from a CLTS standpoint, from a CCS standpoint, it gives the department that ability to flex, to both expand and contract depending on where those needs are. And so I think that's always the most important part, because the last thing is if we had extra clinical therapy, but we need CCS case management, the clinical therapist could do it, but you're paying them a higher rate for that clinical therapist than what you need for the services being provided.
So currently, right now, my staff can absorb the 7 people from CSP that will come over, my current staff. However, I have a full-time caseload on a wait list for CCS, which for that, it doesn't stop. And it probably won't stop. The need is.
So we truly are taking a look at the capacity that our staff currently have. You've heard us discuss the potential need to add staff. We're doing everything that we can to curb that. We want to make sure that those who have any capacity to serve additional consumers are going to be providing that service. So we truly are trying to be the best steward of taxpayer dollars that we can to ensure that everybody is at their max capacity before we reach that level of having to add positions. Any other questions on that?
So Melissa, besides being chairman of this committee, are you a full-time human service employee? I mean, that you have your office hours here and you
Yes.
run things.
Yep. So actually, Virginia is the chair of the committee, and then I'm the director of human services.
Yeah.
Make sense?
You're in charge of the.
Yep.
Okay. Check.
Sure. So as we look at, I'm just moving on outside of these positions, wanted to touch base a little bit more about the capacity issue. So the management team is currently looking at finding tools to measure the capacity of each of the case managers. So to really take a look at the weight of the cases that all of the case managers have. So just because Stephanie maybe has 15 cases and Sue has 10, they actually could be fairly equal in intensity. So we want to figure out a way to look at the weight of each caseload to really have a more accurate grasp on what their capacity is, if that makes sense. So there's a lot of brainstorming happening behind the scenes, looking at external tools that we could potentially use to have that measurement tool. Relocation. So each month I'm providing you updates on the relocation of our 2 youth from Cholita. We're really getting close. The transition date has been set for March 8th, which is very exciting. All of the service providers are in place, school is on board. Of course, all of that planning continues until it actually happens, but it is looking very promising. So again, kudos to our staff who have worked so diligently to get all of that service and planning in place for those consumers. Such a huge initiative, and we are so proud of our staff for making that happen.
Pretend Melissa did not say that date out loud.
We're committed.
Some of us more superstitious than others, not about commitment, so.
Committee updates. So I'm trying to make sure that I provide any committee updates from the previous month and bring the information forward to the Human Services Committee. So just this past Tuesday, we had our Transportation Committee. Linda and Joanne are a part of that committee. Information was shared about the program numbers. Both assessment and ridership numbers continue to increase. We have been able to recruit a couple new volunteer drivers, but they continue to seek additional volunteers. So please spread the word. If anybody's interested, I'm sure Joanne and others would be willing to talk about what that's like. Joanne is one of our volunteer drivers, so she has 2 roles on that committee. We really are open to accepting whatever volunteer hours people are willing to commit to. It can be very minimal, and some of our volunteers are so dedicated and are providing a lot of rides each week. So please spread the word if anybody's interested. Corinne would be the contact for making that happen.
Even if you can, like, if folks can do one person and their hours are just in a way that meets the needs of one person, that's helpful. So I sometimes think that people think, oh, I don't have the time to navigate several people or to commit to this. Even one person or just a few hours a week or a month can really be helpful.
Lastly, I'm going to say this out loud too, Corinne. It's looking like the vehicle from cycle 44, cycle 44, 5310 grant. It was an application from 2019 in which we were supposed to be getting a wheelchair accessible van. COVID hit. There were tons of stumbling blocks, substantial increases in cost of vehicles, right? It looks like the DOT though is going to be making that happen for us. So that's exciting for the transportation program. That's everything that I know. No, I did not put a date out, but soon
So you can seize it.
that's it for me, then, Jim.
Okay, was there anything else to come before the committee? Does anybody have any topics or discussion? on Anything? Okay, then we'll set our next meeting.
Lynn is just whispering in my ear. Do we need a motion for the position to go to the exec committee? I'm thinking not, because it already happened last month, but I just wanted to throw that out in case further discussion needs to happen.
Which one are we talking?
Filling Marine's position, not connected to my transition.
I would do it just to say.
Can we?
Only because if it's not part of the cascade. So, I'm sorry, to explain to the committee, the executive committee had said that the Human Services Department could fill. So when Ms. Anoy became the director, that caused a vacancy, which then caused a vacancy, which then caused a vacancy, which then caused a vacancy, or would cause a vacancy. The committee said that the department did not need to come to the executive committee for each subsequent vacancy that had occurred because of filling that empty spot. Well, the one regarding Maureen O'Shea's retirement was not part of that cascading effect. So therefore, at least to me, it would be safer if the committee were to then recommend to the executive committee that Maureen O'Shea's position be filled. The reason why I say that, while it's budgeted, the hiring freeze requires that all position vacancies must be approved by the executive committee before they can be filled. So my recommendation to this board is that if the committee is so willing that they recommend to the executive committee that that Maureen O'Shea's position be filled.
Just to add a little bit more clarity, this position was discussed at last month's meeting. Milt made a motion to fill it, seconded by
Then
Tim.
never mind.
Okay, there was
Then never
more
mind.
clarity provided though about what we're hoping to do with that position, so as long as you
Then
think
I
we're good.
apologize, never mind what I said.
All right.
I'll go back, which nothing to see here.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry.
No, we're good.
Thank you for motioning.
Yes.
The next item is to schedule our next meeting. Usually we try to do the third Tuesday at 8 o'clock, so that would be the 16th of March.
Thursday.
Thursday.
I will not be here that day.
Would you like us to have a different day? Because there's really nothing pressing that says we can't wait for another week to have our meeting.
If you could wait till the 23rd, that would.
That would be fine with me too. Okay, yeah, because I would rather have you be here than to have a meeting without you. Okay, okay, so 8 o'clock on the 23rd, the next meeting. 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock, okay. Is there anything else come? If not, I would like a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there a second? Joanne, second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned.